Welcome back to the Fighters Corner podcast for another episode. In today's epi, we invited back, by popular demand, the Chilean James Bond, Miguel Iturrate, and recap the recent boxing event featuring the champ, Deontay Wilder versus Dominic Breazeale, to which Wilder only needed a little over 2 minutes to end that fight in epic fashion. As the American public gets more and more exposed to good heavyweight bouts and good American heavyweight champions, the interest and engagement meter will steadily start to rise, and Deontay Wilder may single-handedly put boxing back in the American public's eye, unlike to which we have not seen since the Don King era almost 15 years ago. All this and more as we welcome you back to the podcast. Enjoy the show.
I like to bet on the fights with my friends. Problem is, my friends are all broke, mostly because they bet against me. That's alright, I'm going to take my picks to BetDSI. With 20 years online, BetDSI has more deposit options than any other online sportsbook. They have fast, secure payouts, and when you use promo code Fighters Corner, one word, they're going to give you 100% sports cash bonus. Build a bigger bankroll quicker.
Also, please don't forget to subscribe, hit like, share, all because you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Radio Player, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, and the guy sitting next to you on the train is probably listening to us too. And if you can, show us your support by finding us on Patreon, where you can let us know how much you love us. And if you're a fan of boxing, jiu-jitsu, kumite, and even capoeira, go check out my guys at UCL MMA. These guys are the heavyweight champions of mixed martial arts shows. And if you think you're the next Johnny Lawrence, go to their website at uclmma.com, shoot them an email and tell them John sent you before asking their matchmaker that you want to defend your All-Valley Karate Championship versus one of their fighters. That's uclmma.com. I also want to thank our new Danish friends from Denmark, Malte Castro, who was kind enough to let us use his beats for this podcast. I've listened to his tracks, and this kid's pretty talented for being this young. If you like the track being played right now, go check out his music on Spotify, and you can also find Malte Castro on Instagram and Facebook. Go find this guy. It's pretty good music.
Welcome back to the Fighters Corner. John Goroski, as always, from Costa Rica. Miguel Iturrate. Miguel, we had quite a weekend for combat sports. What are we starting with, buddy?
Well, if you want to hit boxing first, obviously, we can't talk boxing without talking the Barclays Center and Deontay Wilder.
The Brooklyn Bomber.
1 minute knockout, basically, of Dominic Breazeale, which shakes up a lot of things in the heavyweight division.
Does it really, though? I mean, we were expecting this.
I didn't expect it that quick.
I didn't expect it that quick. I didn't think... Here, I looked at what Joshua did to him.
9 rounds, right?
9 rounds, okay. and
Joshua even said that, his concern was that he'd get, that Wilder would dispose of him a lot faster than he did.
Yeah, and that's what Wilder did. Wilder took about, 2 minutes and 17 seconds to put him away?
Miguel, the technique showed in that knockout punch was pretty impressive. Like, it wasn't wild Deontay Wilder. Like, how many times have we sat here and kind of went back and forth about how undisciplined he was as a fighter? And you know what? I think that's shades of that are always going to come out. But he looked good, man. What did you think, Miguel? What did you take from it?
No, I agree with you. Sometimes, he has looked wild. Like at the end of the Ortiz fight, people were comparing him to like a swimmer, throwing punches and things. But at the end of the day, when you got a guy like Mark Breland in your corner, you have to at least give him credit for taking it in. So he has been through it in the gym and in the training and stuff. And here he was able to show it because. He knocked out a very fresh Breazeale, and what he did by doing that and by doing it faster than Joshua, that's not really what is the big message there. Hey, I knocked this guy out faster than you. But the big message to me is hey, I'm 220. And I was so much faster than this guy. This guy has no head movement. And I clipped him and killed him in the first round. Joshua is going to also be 30-something pounds heavier. And if Joshua can be accused of anything, it could be being a little muscle-bound and a little mechanical. And if he's slow, he's going to get hit with that one punch.
Yeah, all right, so on the last podcast we had talked about leverage in regards to, these three guys won't fight each other. They're all going to take, warm-up fights until one of them loses, and then they eliminate themselves from the conversation. But we had also talked about gate playing a role in this. And from what I understand, the day of the fight, they were doing 2-for-1 tickets at the Barclays Center. How does Deontay Wilder not sell that venue out?
That whole marketing of boxing is a very fractured item.
It's completely broken. Not fractured. It is completely broken. It is actually
We'll see how many
back.
people actually watched it on Showtime. That would be an important number because, you would hope that they get into the million or 2 million even people because you're getting to watch it at home basically for free, right? Mm-hmm. If they get a number like, 600,000, that's, going to be extremely disappointing. So I think that's an important number. But again, you're talking about the PBC and stuff. So they've sort of been launching this kind of thing on their own. And at the end, they did put it on free TV, right? So it doesn't come with the bells and whistles of a pay-per-view.
No, it was Showtime
like
pay-per-view.
HBO backing you with their media arm, or even, in the case of the upcoming pay-per-view between Pacquiao and Thurman, they've associated themselves with Fox for that one. So again, you when you go to pay-per-view, you usually benefit from having a major player with you in boxing, and that's not what was going on here. It was free TV, so we'll see how it ends up. But I think Deontay did himself a huge favor.
Miguel, I think it was Showtime pay-per-view, that's what aired it yesterday.
Here it was Showtime pay-per-view. I think in Latin America it was free. They have a different model there. But Miguel, here's the issue that I have. What's going on with boxing right now? Okay, so we're talking. Let's just talk early 2000s, late 90s boxing. You would drive down a major highway and you would see giant billboards, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And then you would hear radio commercials. Now, with the advent of social media, things are changing. The marketing paradigm isn't the same as it was 10 years ago. It wasn't even the same as it was 3 years ago. So all of us in this room are fight guys. Our phones are supposed to be listening to everything we say and catering like marketing. They're supposed to be marketing things towards us. Before we even know we want them, they're supposed to come up in our feed. How many Deontay Wilder ads did you see on your social media, John?
I didn't see any.
0. So I don't know.
I did get a lot, though. I did. I got live notices of the weigh-ins and stuff like that, but that might have been the Showtime people, not the PBC people.
Okay. I am telling you, okay, believe it or not, Miguel, you might not believe this. I do a podcast that is fight-oriented, okay? Some would dispute that, but I believe that's the truth. So I am the target market for these people. I have not seen a single ad pop up on any. There's eye creams. There's even liquor ads. There's cologne ads. I'm not getting anything boxing other than like from Montel Griffin, who talks about boxing all day long, and that's my buddy. So like other than that, I get nothing. And I think what's going on is with all these apps and all these different providers, and then you got a promoter. I think it's so splintered right now in regards to who is supposed to be doing it that they're at a standstill going, well, no, you pay for that. No, you pay for that. Well, it's not me. Well, I don't think anybody knows what they're doing anymore in regards to marketing.
Right, I agree. The DAZN, the ESPN Plus, a lot of the paradigms have changed, so at the end of the day, the money streams are being chopped up. And to me, my feeling is this, is at some point, some of the contracts are going to have to change. And the bottom line is Wilder is probably on the same promotional contract he was a couple of years back when the PBC started. And if that's the case, then that didn't take into account anything like the DAZN or ESPN Plus or anything. Not that that directly affected Wilder for this fight because he wasn't on one of those.
Okay, but someone's got to pay for this stuff. Someone's got to pay for this stuff. Okay. And essentially, like, when these people are all cutting checks that are coming out of a bank account and there's more money going out than coming in, they got to think to themselves, wait a minute, man, this is out of control. We're not marketing this anymore. Like, they're not marketing. Deontay Wilder should not be able to walk down the street without getting completely mobbed. And you know what? I don't think that would happen in certain major cities right now. I think he could walk down the street just going, oh, it's a big, tall athlete, or a good-looking guy or an in-shape guy.
Well, people might ask, who is that?
Who is he?
He's impressive.
And that is not supposed to happen when you're Deontay Wilder.
But here's the problem: is that's heavyweight boxing in America right now, and it went through the downtime with Klitschko as the champions, where we weren't even really developing, marketable guys here. What's scary to me, and what should be scary to every boxing fan, is what you just said about Deontay Wilder being able to still walk down the street in some places and not be mobbed and stuff like that. Now, think of how cataclysmic it would be for anybody to recognize the number 2 American boxer anywhere, even in his own home. It's like at this point, I guess we know Andy Ruiz at the buffet line, right? But where else? Who knows Michael Hunter, who was a cruiserweight fighter? In terms of walking down the street, America. Nobody. There are no other. There's still no one like that. We don't have the situation they have in England. In England, you can just run over the top of your head. You've got Joshua and Tyson Fury, right? You've got Dillian White chasing them down. You've got Derek Chisora, who sits around as a veteran and will take any one of those guys on. You got a guy like David Price, and you got all the guys like Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois, and Borman, and guys like that are all coming up. I can name more British heavyweights than I can name American heavyweights. I think is a problem in the whole of boxing in the United States.
I think the reason to blame on that is that American fans have been so disconnected from heavyweight championship boxing, or even boxing in general, that it's taken them a while to come back. The UK and England, they were fortunate enough to always have something to watch, somebody to watch, either in the heavyweight division or even the lighter weight divisions, that always engage their interest. Now, when you compare that to American boxing and their fans and what they've endured since the Klitschko era, it's really nothing. It was a good American heavyweight when Klitschko was around? And I say good, meaning good that we were able to be entertained and watched.
Yeah.
Nobody.
No one.
Nobody. Capital N-O, body. There was nobody. So I think this is a product that fans have been so disconnected from the sport that it's going to be a process to come back to.
See, I think a lot of the heavyweights that you're talking about from that era, the UFC was so hot right then. Well, so they either played NFL football or they joined a dojo to try to get the UFC.
Dude, I agree with you 100% because...
So they stole from boxing. But boxing seems to be kind of leveling off again.
In 2005, if I owned a gym, okay, and I seen a big, huge athlete walk into my door, and he wanted to learn boxing,
salivating,
I would say, dude, we're going to get you to
MMA.
wrestle. Yeah. We're going to teach you wrestling first.
Even though the paydays that time, you're going to be trying to convince a guy to take a lesser payday, even today.
Well, I also think, too, that there was a lot less boxing promotions locally that were going around, and it was tougher for these guys to get these bouts. But now I think the tides are starting to change. It's not going to happen in one night. I mean, boxing is fortunate.
Boxing's hot right now.
It is, and they're fortunate enough to have fans like us who support the sport, who are seeing what other people aren't seeing yet. And the tide is starting to change a little bit, where it's going to be less MMA and more boxing.
It's coming.
Let's say, all right, fast forward to 2019. You have a 225-pound heavyweight that walks into your gym right now. Where's the money at?
It's not even the same. It's not even close. If it was almost even, or even... it's not even a third, of a difference. I mean, you're talking 2/3 of a difference.
Yeah, it's
ugly.
It's
ugly.
I could give you a relevant example. Everybody knows Travis Fulton, the Iron Man of MMA. He has 300 MMA fights.
Yeah, guy knows me money.
But he also has 60. I understand, but he also has 60 pro boxing fights. And just as an example, he confided in me that in those 60 pro boxing fights, he's made more money than he did in his 300 MMA fights.
Yeah. I remember him telling me that he would take fights for he's like, you just get 9-10 wins in a row, and then you get a monster payday to take a loss.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, he fought like Chaz Witherspoon and guys like that. He's, I think he's got a losing record in boxing, like 30-30 or something like that. But it is a job where he took it that way, and he goes and the pay only at the elite levels the pay is comparable. Can you say McGregor? Can you say Pacquiao? Those guys, they're all in the same tax bracket. But you start getting into mid cards and things like that. Boxers are probably a little more reasonably paid at this point, and then at the very lower levels, entry level and stuff like that, it's probably everybody fighting for basically free or $50 or $200 a round,
or they have to pay.
Whatever
they have to pay. Yeah, they have to pay. The boxing paradigm for pay is crazy.
When you look at the casual fan and what they're interested in when it comes to the sport, they just want to see a knockout. So a new fan that's coming into the sport is not going to be entertained by Lomachenko. Unlike me or Mike or even Miguel, I'm salivating to watch a fight like that because it's so technical with everything going on with what Lomachenko does. I mean, he might not knock the guy out, but you're going to see a really pretty boxer.
Honestly, he shouldn't be able to walk down the street. And for him not to be a pay-per-view draw is just, it's like an insult.
Right.
It really is.
But now you're looking at what boxing is doing to the casual fan. And the casual fan, they want to see the knockout. So I think that Deontay Wilder getting that first-round knockout in the same fashion that Mike Tyson did at one point is a great way to start to turn these casual fans.
And he's a specimen.
He is incredible. He
guy's
is so incredible.
Yeah.
Now, what I think, this is going to have a ripple effect. Okay, this is going to have a negative ripple effect for Deontay Wilder because what's going to happen is that the fans of American boxing just seen this. They just seen an American heavyweight knock out somebody in 2 minutes.
Water cooler talk. There's going to be a lot of water cooler talk tomorrow at work.
You know what that's going to carry on to? It's going to carry on to the Joshua fight. They're going to see, well, who's this guy want to fight next? Oh, well, Anthony Joshua. Well, who's that? Oh, he's this guy out of England who's going to be fighting in a couple weeks. Oh, no kidding. We should watch that.
Or who, I might add, they've just heavily discounted those tickets for the Barclays Center as well. What is happening in New York? How do you not take advantage of seeing these guys live? Like, I can't even wrap my head around. Like, I couldn't justify not going to a fight like that.
Yeah, well, I think Joshua and Ruiz is almost at a near sellout right now. So, and that says something that
near sell. It should have already been done.
Well, it's here. What you said earlier with Deontay Wilder, they were pretty much giving away seats up until the time of the event,
and that hurts your negotiating.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, this knockout is going to hurt Deontay Wilder probably more than it'll help him. Yeah, well, I say that
he needed a knockout.
He needed a knockout for himself in the ring, but financially, with like going into negotiations, he's going to help Anthony Joshua get a couple more buys on that pay-per-view because of what he did.
I agree with that. But prove that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see because everyone's going to want to see now Joshua versus Wilder. And I'm going to throw something else out there too. Why wasn't Joshua's name brought up in that ring?
It's almost like it was intentionally avoided.
Well, Luis Ortiz walked in, and Luis Ortiz said that he wanted to fight Deontay Wilder. But do we really want to see that again? I mean, like, I'm not really interested in seeing that. Miguel, are you interested in seeing that?
No, but I think it's more likely next than Joshua.
Well, here we go.
I think that's the damage that got done by the knockout is Joshua was able to say, I've got 3 belts, you've got 1. I'm the guy who sold out 90,000 seat stadiums in England in a day. I'm coming here, and even with a changed opponent, I sold 15,000 tickets in Madison Square Garden. So I'm the A side. And now Wilder can say, you know what? You took 9 rounds to knock out that guy that I finished in 1 round.
Right.
I'm the A side.
Okay. Well,
from there, negotiations fall to the lawyers and the Eddie Hearns of the world, and that's where things tend to get stuck in boxing if we know our history, right?
Okay. So I am going to make a statement here that I defy anybody to argue with, and that is, all right, when you fight a Cuban and you win, that's significant. Like when, like there's certain benchmarks when you're a professional boxer, and one, I mean, some sort of amateur title, obviously. Olympics is another one. And a world champion as a pro. The one thing that like seasoned pros talk about is, hey, did you ever beat a Cuban? Because I mean, it'd have to be some sort of international competition or through the Olympics, and it's like, did you ever beat a Cuban? The technical aspects of Cuban fighters. Like Wilder had a lot of trouble with Ortiz the first time, and you can sit here and go, "Well, he was sick. He had this, he had that." I don't care whatever excuse you want to make. He struggled with Ortiz. Never ever give a seasoned Cuban fighter a second chance to beat you, ever.
So he fought Luis back in 2018. And he beat him, or Deontay Wilder beat him, and at that time,
I think he was behind on the scorecards.
I don't know. I looked to see.
You're probably right. Here, I would add a caveat to that though, because what you're talking about, I think, with the Cubans is a little bit more of an active factor in the amateurs, or actually a lot more of an active factor in the amateurs. Once they turn pro, they kind of become individuals, and you've got fantastic guys. Like, for example, I'll give you one example of a guy who I thought could have been maybe the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world as he was starting to come up, but then he's a Cuban amateur who doesn't throw, heavy punches. It's just straight jazz. There's a guy like Erzlandi Lara. Another elite Cuban. You have Guillermo Rigondeaux. You have some guys like that.
Rigondeaux's a stud.
Ortiz is just let Ortiz keep aging. Let Ortiz keep aging. You're already beating him, and if you need him to throw him in to the ring because Joshua's trying to hold out on a couple $1 million or whatever, then that's what he's going to be serviceable for. I don't know that he should. He's in a position anymore with his age and stuff to inspire that type of fear. You may be right, but he may be somebody who would be avoided, but not avoided at all costs at this point. I think they'll fight him if Joshua turns into a knucklehead in negotiations.
So Deontay Wilder fought Luis Ortiz a year ago, and Luis Ortiz was 39 years old. So if they fight again, let's say this year,
I try to extend that.
According to Cuban math, how old would he be? About 45, 46 at that point?
That's a lot of miles on that Cuban car too, man. Believe me.
He's probably cashing.
It's funny because he says he's 39 or 40, but
that's what they all say.
He's got a 19-year-old grandchild. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So what else happened?
Boxing had the World Boxing Super Series continue. Those fights went on in Scotland and were semifinals of some phenomenal tournaments. We had Josh Taylor at 140 pounds defeat Ivan Baranchik, and what that does is it sets Taylor up to face Regis Prograis in the finals of that tournament, and that's very exciting for everybody in boxing, you know what I mean? And then on that same card, we had something that's definitely out of the box and something worth talking about, and that's the appearance of Naoya Inoue. Inoue, known as the Monster out of Japan, now moves to 18-0. He sizzled Emmanuel Rodriguez and knocked him out in 2 rounds.
Is he the real deal?
Monster does.
Is he the real deal, in your opinion, Miguel?
Well, I do believe so, yes.
Everyone's talking about him.
Yeah. He's on everybody's top 10 pound-for-pound list.
Yeah, everyone is kind of listing him as, whoa, we got something here.
He's got a Lomachenko kind of buzz where, like, since early on, he's been somebody to look at. And the reason this particular fight that moves him into the finals against Nonito Donaire of the World Boxing Super Series, the reason it's notable and important for him is that he stepped out of his home country and he went and fought in England. Sure, it was a neutral ground because it was a Latin fighter he fought in the tournament, but still, that's something different for a Japanese fighter. And the fact that a very close Japanese boxing team would allow him to go out of the country and allow him to do that, I think shows that they do have a lot of confidence in what they have in him. I think he's somebody to watch. If you look at his earlier career, he started out at the very lower weights, like flyweight, super flyweight, and then I think he had a flyweight world champion, jumped super flyweight, went right to bantamweight. And at bantamweight, if you look at him, he's still huge. He's still huge. So you're talking about a guy who probably will top his career off around featherweight or around there. So he's got room to move up and stuff. But right now, he's been dominant at every level.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to have like McGregor type, numbers in terms of pay-per-view when he starts fighting over here. I don't know.
Really?
I wonder if he's going to start carrying that country on his back, like a lot of the other, like fighters.
It is, but unfortunately, the diaspora, there's not like, a huge Japanese buying audience in the States for the pay-per-views, right? Not like Irish descent and stuff like that,
But, I mean, there is a huge Japanese community here, though. I mean, it's like I wonder if that's going to be possible. If we're going to see somebody, just kind of.
But by huge, you cannot compare it to the Irish.
No.
The Irish in the States and in their country. In Japan, everybody's going to watch the fight. How that monetizes for him, that's great. But to help him in his pay-per-view numbers here, he's got to keep knocking people out. He also has working against him, the bantamweight, because, leading off with a bantamweight pay-per-view in American boxing, I don't even know if that's been done before.
I don't think so either.
With Chocolatito Gonzalez, and at super flyweight,
it was always co-main. Yeah, it was always co-main event.
And when his name faded a little bit, that super flyweight division, it still has a huge amount of talent on there, but it doesn't have Gonzalez to add the name recognition anymore. So it has gotten a little smaller. So that's what Inoue faces. But Inoue may be the best in these weight classes, going right now.
That's good. And what about, do we have any odds coming up, Miguel? Has there been any sway in regards to Joshua and Ruiz? Have the numbers stayed the same?
I can give you a readout on that here. The numbers are ugly. And what is interesting to note for the boxing public is that we just saw Deontay Wilder and Dominic Breazeale. Wilder, a major favorite, minus 1,000, minus 900, right around there at closing time. And that was the most competitive of the heavyweight fights that we're going to get between Joshua Fury and these other guys coming up. Joshua, a minus 3,400 favorite over Ruiz. Ruiz paying back at plus 1,700. And the over-under there is set at 6.5. Now that, Ruiz is a sturdy guy, but that is now something I urge people to consider and think about a little bit, because Joshua does have the added pressure of coming to try to do something impressive the way Wilder did. So, a second or third round knockout for him of Ruiz, well under the under, should be what he's going for. I don't think it's a good time for negotiations or anything like that for him to say, let's work some rounds, and get into the 10th round with this guy and see, that's not what it is. He has to be efficient here. So the over-under number, it actually may have dropped. It's at 6.5 now.
I wonder if Wilder jumps in the ring and just punks him out afterward.
I hope.
I mean,
there is media reports that Wilder is planning to be at Madison Square Garden for the show.
That's good. I hope to see that.
Jonathan mentioned, I think he's absolutely right.
He's going to punk him out.
Joshua should have been invited to this show. Joshua should have been sitting front row. And if that's not the case, and you're, at least he should be mentioned, and he should have been talked about.
Not once he was mentioned.
Then we got there, because that is the elephant in the room, right?
Do you think it was because it's like? Do you think it's because it's like rival promotions, or do you think it's because of carriers?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's what it is.
At the end of the day, when we've talked about UFC, I've told you my opinion is, and my opinion is very simple. The most important person in UFC history is Dana White. It's not any of the fighters. It's what Dana White has done on the business end for all of the other things. So now if you move that over to boxing, you have guys on the same level in terms of what they've built. One good example, and a good example is from Britain, is Joshua's manager, Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn is an ego. Eddie Hearn likes to have things done his way, and now he's coming over and sort of butting heads with American promoters who have other ideas and other things of doing. And again, he's bullish. That's not a problem in many occasions, and the guy gets things done for his people. But at the end of the day, don't get anything wrong, Eddie Hearn's the biggest ego in the room.
Yeah, if this was fought under a Dana White banner, we would have seen Wilder and Joshua last year. Yeah. It would have happened already. At this point, we'd probably be talking about a rematch.
Yeah, Wilder was screaming about getting $100 million for the fight now. I don't even get it. Like, I don't know, man. I think we're years. Away.
Unfortunately, I think you're right, man. I hate to say you're right, but I think at this rate, Deontay Wilder's going to go through every single heavyweight 2 times. And he's already fighting Luis 2 times in 2 years. I mean, he's going to probably get Breazeale again, and then maybe he's going to get Andy Ruiz. I mean, these guys going to, they're going to
I'll tell you what's set up right now that is worth watching, and it will be interesting, because as an American public, we are just starting to get to know the players on an international level from England. And what you have here is you've got Tyson Fury, who's handled basically by Frank Warren and Queensberry Promotions, and then you've got Joshua and Hearn. Now, Hearn and Joshua are one, and Queensberry and Fury are two in terms of size of the promotions and stuff. And Hearn got handed the business from his father, so he's a second-generation promoter, and that business is strong and has been going for a long time. They're pretty clearly the number one guys in England with Sky Sports and stuff. But the number two guys have Fury. So now this is going to be interesting, because if Wilder can pick and choose between one of those two, who is going to come up with a better offer for Wilder? Because
Warren.
Fury can keep fighting bums, but Fury is well set up for that Wilder rematch. It's his most appealing next match. Even if Joshua and Fury fight, that keeps Wilder on the side. That could also happen. So that's what makes these negotiations very interesting, because do you do the Wilder match, or if Joshua comes up, do you go ahead and do you do the Fury fight? Or if Joshua comes up with a solid offer, do you go ahead and take the Joshua offer?
I don't think Joshua wants any part of this. I don't think he wants any part of either of those guys. It seems to me like he's got the belts.
I'll correct you a little bit. I don't think Hearn does.
I think that's it. That's what it is right there. Joshua probably wants it, but Hearn doesn't.
So when Sonny Liston was making his way, to getting the heavyweight title, he literally completely emptied the heavyweight division, while Floyd Patterson was being protected by his management and only fighting really lighter heavyweight guys or lesser opponents. It seems to me that Sonny Liston is Deontay Wilder, just completely cleaning up the ranks, willing to fight anybody, while Floyd Patterson is Anthony Joshua, just kind of hiding. And it's going to take where'd they fight? Comiskey Park.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
So I don't know, man. Like I think the only one willing to fight anybody is Wilder, and Fury already has said that he's stepping on the brakes too.
Yeah, I think before the end of this...
I don't think it's like, I think it's more Hearn's interpretation that there's so much money to be made out there.
Man, you can sit here and say it's Hearn. You can sit here and say that, but at the end of the day, you got Anthony Joshua that he's got to convince, and it's got to mess with his head. Mm-hmm. If I'm Anthony Joshua and I fight and I want to fight somebody, and then you got Eddie Hearn going, no, not yet. You start to self-doubt. You really do, and you can't say you don't.
Here's the thing. At the end of the day, money is the overriding factor. It's what Hearn is chasing and what Hearn is hanging out as a carrot to get his way over the fighters. Of course, if Joshua wants to say, look, do this fight, do it for free, I don't care, we got to do it because it'll make me more money down the line if I beat him, because everybody's talking about it. And Hearn says no, Joshua could say, no, do it anyway. That's fine. But at some point, Joshua, I believe, is letting Hearn do the management because of the money. And if it says, hey, wait like Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather for the payday, and it'll come, but we got to wait. We got to build it. We got to do this. And it could take years. If he gets convinced of that, that's the problem. And, I'm not sure the way it goes, because Hearn can be convincing. I would take it. And Hearn has been very successful. So, to tell him that I want to do it my way, not your way, when he's carried him to the world championships and he's already admittedly, number one heavyweight in the world on every list at 26 to 27 years old, you're now going to tell your manager, no, let's do something a little different. Let's do it my way. So that's what is riding there. So that's why I do think it's a heavily complicated issue right now. And they're going to leave it to the promoters. It's going to be the guys. Keep in mind, Fury has some ties now to the ESPN apps and ESPN Plus, and that means Bob Arum hanging around, sitting there, So, and Bob and Eddie Hearn do not get along. They've already sent salvos, But Eddie's going to outlive Bob, probably. But it gets crazy from there. And you think Bob's not an ego who would stop a fight because he didn't think the pay was good? So
right.
It's a scary situation, because I can still see the old boxing bugaboo of, talking yourself out of fights and out negotiating yourselves and not delivering the fight is still going to happen.
Yeah. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. If I'm Eddie Hearn, I'm having Joshua fight bums for the next 4 or 5 fights at like 20, 30, 40, $50 million a piece. Because if he goes up against Wilder and he gets that loss, what is a ticket with Anthony Joshua worth anymore?
I think those fights are. I don't. It's going to be a few years.
Yeah, it's not going to be 2019. It's going to maybe not be 2020. No, 2021.
And as
when you start to see a little bit of gray in Deontay Wilder's beard, probably.
You've already called it. Like the heavyweights, they're very good, but they're not very deep.
Yeah.
So I mean,
well, you know what? What's going to happen is one of these guys, like let's pretend we're living in a world where Andy Ruiz beats Anthony Joshua. Where does that put Andy Ruiz in the heavyweight category? Now, mind you, Yordenis Ugas goes up against Sean Porter, loses, and is automatically a top 10 welterweight in the world after a loss. What type of world are we living with if Andy Ruiz ends up beating Anthony Joshua?
Here, I don't have an answer to that question, but I will say this.
It might be fun to find out.
Yeah.
Would that be a shakeup?
Okay, Deontay Wilder.
Eddie Hearn will be on suicide watch. So
I'm okay with that. So Deontay Wilder, you know, when you there's 2 Deontay Wilders. There's one guy that has got a daughter that's special needs, that makes incredible sacrifices in order to make ends meet, to make sure that his daughter's, you know, gets what she needs to have come. Like incredible sacrifices.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the Deontay Wilder that says, wow, there's a Deontay Wilder that's got a felony on his record for doing something stupid while in college. And then he does interviews stating, yeah, I want to get a body on my record. I'm going to kill somebody in the ring. And I don't care what you say. I put my life in there every time I go in there, and I'm willing to die. So should you. And I get that. You got to sell tickets, okay? Because the people that are in charge of advertising aren't doing it. Yeah. So he needs to step up. Okay, so I get all of that. Deontay Wilder isn't a bitch, okay? And just because he's a nice guy, and he is a nice guy, doesn't mean he's not capable of being a bad guy. Mm-hmm. When Anthony Joshua comes to New York and he's in that ring, if you don't think he's... I would go to betdsi.com. I would put in promo code Fighters Corner to get double cash action on that. And I would say Anthony Joshua's catching a 2-piece spicy after that fight.
So before we...
Did you see that happening?
It's possible.
If you don't think he's getting punched by Deontay Wilder after this fight, you've lost your mind. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to build a fight? Hey, here. We just had a conversation about 7 minutes about how it's going to be a few years. Mm-hmm. Do you know how you change that? You make him get stitches after he fought. That's how you change that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to punk him out.
Mike, you're talking about an absolutely 21st century game now, because Joshua is in Eddie Hearn's world. Mr. Wilder has already attended Joshua fights in the United Kingdom, and at one point gone ahead and was going to go, and then this is what's notable, didn't go because the contract for his just appearance couldn't be settled. And if you think that contract doesn't go into details about conduct and what you're going to do and stuff, you're way off. So that's the way they manage these ring appearances now. There's actually contracts involved with them. So it makes it more difficult for that spontaneous moment like you're looking for. You know? And I'm tired of seeing guys push each other at weigh-ins. I think it's stupid, and I think it looks fake every time now, because I don't care if they're angry at each other. It's always going to be the same thing. 30 people jump in the middle and guys yelling at each other after a push, and then it's like, ooh. It's like, it doesn't interest me to build a fight anymore. But they need something. I think you're absolutely right. They need something, but it's super complicated because you have guys who've already taken their regional scenes to the top of whatever they could do. Eddie Hearn was as big as he was going to be in England. Bob Arum owns the states along with, Golden Boy, the premier boxing champions. It's chopped up, but those are the big players, right? Now step up onto the international scene, and you got to look across at Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren and, a handful of other promoters, maybe Russians and things like that are on equal footing in terms of money and things like that. So it's very complicated.
Well, we're going to figure that out. So, Miguel, that concludes our portion of boxing. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for joining Fighters Corner. Hit subscribe. We appreciate all the support we can get.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.